strong memory I have was just before the age of 9, when after 7 years in the West Indies we returned from Trinidad. I remember when we embarked on the banana ship that brought us home, the parish that my parents had served for 7 years came down to the ship to see us. They were broken-hearted. They wept copiously. It was like a death, and it's a memory that stayed with me always. That parting was incredibly painful for my parents, and those people felt bereft. When someone is taken from us and we no longer see them, our response is not usually one of joy, especially if we love them. Yet at the Ascension, we are told that this is exactly how the disciples responded to the event of their Lord's ascension, to his being taken from them. How do we make sense of this? Unless they were people without feeling, and surely they weren't. It only makes sense if, in the first place, they saw in this event the fulfillment of what Jesus had already told them must happen. He had told them, they were prepared, and so it came to pass. And so rather than being a cause for desperation, they were filled with hope for what he had promised. For he had promised that he would send his Spirit upon them, that the Father would send the Spirit. Secondly, they already had a sense. They already had a sense as they went their way of the truth of what he had told them. Not that he was going to leave them and go away, but rather, I am with you always. I am with you always to the end of the age. Already faith was beginning to grow within them. The doubts which had clouded their minds for so long were being swept away. Now faith was enabling them to see that which was hidden from them, to understand what until then had been way beyond them. For Jesus was taken from their sight after 40 days, not because he had gone, disappeared, but rather because at his Father's right hand he would remain, and there he would pray for them. And more than this, he remained with them, and they in him, and in him they would bear much fruit in his name. 3 times in the passage from St. John's Gospel, the word that's rendered keep them is in the Authorized Version, means protect. That word protect is used. But what does it mean? Keep them safe, protect them. For many of those of whom Jesus was speaking, those he prayed for, would indeed die for their faith. Some of them would be crucified like him. What did it mean when he said, keep them, Father? I have kept them. Protect them. I have protected them. Jesus did not issue his followers with weapons. He didn't give them swords. He didn't wave a magic wand and produce breastplates and helmets with magical properties. He prayed for them. He prayed the Father to protect them, and his prayer was that they might be one, that they might not be scattered and divided, but that they might be one as he and the Father are one. One in love, one in faith, one in God. He had protected them from being lost while he was with them, and he prayed the Father to protect them from evil, to protect them from the devil, that their souls might not be destroyed. He did not ask the Father to rescue them or to protect them from the world. Jesus says in the beginning of this passage, I have manifested thy name unto those you gave me. I have made your name known to them. The name of God was the most holy thing of all to a Jew, When Moses asked God for his name, he said, "Why do you ask for my name?" And he simply said, "I am." That's all you need to know. I am. Jesus made the name of God known to his disciples. That is to say, they saw in the relationship of Jesus and his Father, in that relationship which they saw and understood and experienced, they saw in that the very nature of God. That's what the name of God means. The nature of God revealed and understood that relationship was a relationship of love and a relationship of prayer. The relationship of the Father and the Son is a relationship of prayer. At the heart of God is not a thunderbolt. At the heart of God, the very heart of God is prayer. That's what these readings are telling us. If we are children of God, it is because we pray. It is in prayer that we reveal that the image of God is in us. Jesus said, "Protect them. I have kept them." We are people of flesh and blood. We fear pain. We shrink from it. And we generally in our society, we see the relief of suffering as being the greatest good. But we cannot demand of God that throughout our lives we are wrapped in cotton wool, else we do not live at all. Surely it is in pain and in labour that my mother brought me to life, and yet through that she rejoiced to hear the cry of life in her child. We do not come into life in order to hide ourselves away in case something bad should happen. We are brought up to see the world as beautiful and amazing, even if it's dangerous at times, to see life as an adventure. We learn by exploring that the sea and the water were made to swim in, that it carries us rather than to drown us. That is not its purpose. And yes, we learn, and we learn to pray, just as I teach the children across the road to pray as if it was the most natural thing in the world. It is in this that we discover and that we reveal that we are the children of God. In that, rather than in the greatest feats of human endeavour which seek only to glorify ourselves. It is in prayer that we are defined as the children of God. This isn't just a Christian insight. Years ago there was a programme about an apocryphal event in the prison camp at Auschwitz. The prisoners, philosophers and others, Jews, put God on trial. How could God, they said, allow such a thing to happen to his people? And indeed they tried God and found God guilty as charged. But at the end of it, they thought, well, what do we do with this? And one of them said, we pray. This is what makes us Jews, he said. A Jew prays. And in the end of this extraordinary play on television, we see these men, in spite of all, and facing the worst horrors and more than they could have imagined, we see them praying because they say, in this we are defined as human beings and as Jews. In this we are the revelation of what we were called to be. In the best of times and in the worst of times, we pray. For me, there is something beautiful in this reading from St. John's Gospel, and what I take from this is that at the heart of all that is, in the very heart of creation, we find the relationship of love, the love of a child for their father, for their parent, a relationship expressed in prayer which doesn't demand, which doesn't command or manipulate, but which trusts and acts and loves. And we learn in this reading that we are invited into that relationship of love and faith and prayer, even as those first disciples of Jesus were called. And we are invited into this because, as Jesus said, they are mine, and all that is mine is the Father's. And even as you are Christ's flock and his children of one Father, so you are invited into that relationship to define yourself through prayer. And then we will find indeed, as David, God's chosen king, found when he was little more than a child in his time of trial, we too will find that we do not need in life to be weighed down with someone else's ill-fitting armour, that in our time of trial, the Lord will provide us with all that we need to overcome. Thanks be to God.
Amen.